Joining us now, Donald Trump Jr. Don, good to have you with us, sir.
Good to be with you, John. How are you?
Well, we've had quite the week. I'm doing fabulous. Thank you so much. Let's get to the FBI Clinton decision. So I'm watching it, as many of you were, and I'm sure you were also, with the Fräulein, my wife. And the first 7 minutes, my wife turned to me and she said, John, you're finally wrong about something, even though you've been 100% on everything else. She's going to get indicted. 7 minutes after, she's not. What was your reaction to this?
Well, listen, honestly, I'm not surprised. I was sort of expecting that. You know what it is, John? It's the double standard we've grown used to as a country. If it was you, if it was me, if it was any middle American guy doing this, someone in the military that they'd be in jail for the rest of their life. They wouldn't even be charged. They'd be in jail for so long. They just get sit there and rot. Mm-hmm. It's just a double standard. It's what we've grown used to. If you're a Clinton or if you're one of these political elites, you can get away with murder because Loretta Lynch and the Democrats, they're not going to indict themselves. They're going to take care of themselves to make sure they can push their nonsense agenda on everyone else. And you know what? We should be sick of it. I mean. They even said, well, this is not to say that anyone else that did something similar wouldn't be. And it's so ridiculous. It just shows that the system is rigged. My father's been saying it for a long time. You could see it in the primary system. You could see it in all these things. It's just about the powerful maintaining that power, taking a voice away from the people, and it's disgusting.
I tell you what, it is about the ruling elite. There's no question, and the system is rigged economically, politically, governmentally. Business-wise, look, if you're not part of the elite ruling class, you don't stand the shot. This is what Bernie Sanders was saying. That's why he got tens of thousands of people at his rallies like your father. But look, there's a movement now going on. People are seeing this, Don. They're seeing it with their own eyes. They're living it every day. And they don't feel that they've got middle America right now doesn't feel that they have a fair shot at success like everybody else. Am I right?
Because they don't, John. Even Hillary's new BFF, Elizabeth Warren, was like, now we're going to finally see justice for... And it was like, just kidding. It's the biggest joke in the world. And, what's nice about this election cycle is I think that people are finally seeing it. I've seen it over the years. It's a little bit more. There's some skepticism, but it's like, no, you'd still love to believe because, Americans, they love this country as I do, and they want to believe that everything's right and that it's going to be taken care of and that it is a true democracy and everyone's equal and going to be treated that way. But it's not the case. Those political elite, they play by a different set of rules. It's a double standard, no different than, hey, they're the only people in the country exempt from Obamacare. They're the only people. How do you have a system where the people who vote and impose these rules on people can exempt themselves from the very rules that they're saying everyone else has to live by? It's just ridiculous. It's not fair. And it just shows the American people that, hey, unless you're one of those people, and guess what? You have no chance of ever becoming those people.
Right.
Unless you're one of them, you can't do it. And this is not even a thing about wealth because, God knows, my father has enough of that and he can take care of himself. But it's about that power class and the ruling class. It doesn't even have to do with money. It has to do with the people in power are going to make sure they're taking care of themselves and holding themselves to a different set of rules that everyone else has to live by. And
that's why I believe that your father and his presence and ascension politically is a threat to that entire ruling elite class, Don.
Oh, without question, John. You could see it, all along. The one thing they don't want to see is an outsider, especially an outspoken one, coming in there and messing with their game because they know that's what his thing is. His whole deal is, hey, I'm not doing the stuff with the Wall Street banks. The irony of it is that the billionaire in the race is the guy that's actually for the people, the guy that's not going after the bank funding and all of these things that Hillary Clinton, is doing. So she's in one side, she's saying, we're going to take care of this. We're going to get rid of the Fed. We're going to do this. Meanwhile, she's raking in the money from them because they know all too well that she can be bought and that she's been bought and Bill's been bought for the last 3 decades. And that's the game. You buy them. How else does someone who led a life, I keep hearing them talk about leading a life of public service. You lead a life of public service, you're worth more than $200 million. I'm not so sure. I think there'd be a lot more people in public service if you could end up being worth $200 million. Building nothing. Employing no one. Only peddling influence and power for their buddies, their crony capitalists, all of these guys. It's a rigged system, John. It's unfair.
It totally is. And, the grand irony of this, and you're right, it took a billionaire like your father to break the system open because he was able to self-fund. And when your father gets elected...
That's not lost on me. I mean, the irony of all of this is you would think that the guy that's worth $1 billion would be that guy, and he's actually the guy that's giving a voice to the people. He's the guy that's saying, wait a minute, give me a break. I've been on the other side of this, and as a businessman, that was my job to be on the other side of this.
Don,
but now that he's not on that side, now that he said, hey, I've done everything I need to do in my life, now I want to give back to the people and bring this country back to what it was and what it should be, that's an important thing.
That is the grand irony of this whole thing, no question. Don, look, I'm going to get straight to this. Your sister, your brother-in-law, your nieces and nephews, they're Jewish. Your dad's son-in-law and his daughter are now Jewish. His grandkids are Jewish.
And how about this, John? How about I grew up in New York City. 3 of my 5 best men are Jewish. My father, half his executives, probably more than half his executives are Jewish. I mean, the notion that these people are trying to say that, a mistake for an IT guy, means he's an anti-Semite. I mean, I've never seen anything so disgusting in your life. And the real problem with all of it, and I think I spoke to you about this last time we were on, when people throw out the racism card or the anti-Semite card, is, hey, racism, anti-Semitism, all of these things are real issues in this country, John. They are real issues in this country and, frankly, across the world. But when the left throws it out there every time they can't win an argument, or it's their ace in the hole. It's like, oh, well, I think this is blue, you think it's green, you must be a racist. You're doing a major disservice to the people who are actually afflicted by that plight. And, it's a shame that it's just thrown around there so haphazardly, so stupidly. I mean, you couldn't be in business in New York City for 40 years doing the things that we've done if you even had a notion of this. I mean, it's so laughable. My friends, like I said, 3 of my 5 best men, at my wedding are Jewish. They saw this stuff and they're calling me, but like, yeah, that's sort of awkward, isn't it? I mean, I've known your dad for a damn long time. I've known you guys for a while. I mean, they're sitting there laughing on the phone at how stupid it is. The problem is the average person across the country, they see this stuff and they take the liberal agenda and these sound bites, they take it as gospel. It's disgusting, John. It's such a different set of rules for these people.
Well, and the political correctness has run amok, and you have the star that somebody puts on, that Dan puts on a graphic. Probably a bad choice, but it has nothing to do with your father or your family being anti-Semitic based on your history and your family makeup. This is why this is the most asinine thing that I've ever seen in my life.
John, it's about as stupid as saying that I'm racist against white people. Like, what I mean? Like, I mean,
right?
It doesn't get any dumber. Besides the obvious, besides the awards, besides being head of the Israeli Day Parade, all of these things, all of his Jewish friends, all of his Jewish employees, executives, high-level people. I mean, he probably knows more Jewish people in this than he does Christians. It's so laughable that if it wasn't so sick, if it wasn't so twisted, and if it wasn't so much of the Democrat playbook, you'd think you were being punked.
Absolutely. All right, I want to get to Hillary Clinton. I'm watching the news shows the last couple of days, and she's got her surrogates on the various cable shows defending her. But no one has asked this question. Here is Mrs. Clinton running for president, who looked Americans dead in the eye and lied profusely, just lied about these
John,
emails.
In all fairness, it's not just her. Every time they look in the camera and try to speak forcefully about the truth, it usually ends up being a lie. She's not the first one in the family to do that. I mean, it's just it's insane, and the fact that people have let her get away with it. But what's interesting about it, even the last 2 days, even the liberals and the Bernie Sanders supporters are saying, Jesus Christ, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, it's so flagrant, that even some of the left are saying, okay, this is getting a little bit ridiculous. I mean, when you talk about it, I mean, the FBI basically said, well, there was no intent, so hey, you don't need intent. How many guys in the military did a sloppy job, handling an email or two, and they sit in jail for years? It doesn't work.
Well, the double standard is unbelievable. One of the criticisms that the Clinton campaign and that Hillary herself is now leveling against your father almost every day is saying that he doesn't have the temperament to be commander-in-chief. Now, Don, you're the oldest son. You know your dad better than anybody. He raised you. He took you to baseball games and so forth. He took you to the football games when he owned the Generals in New Jersey. Now you work with him every day. You've been working with him for a long time. Just for the record, okay, you know him better than anybody. Define your father's temperament.
Honestly,
yes,
he's a great, normal guy. His temperament's perfect. John, you can't do what he's done for 40 years. You can't have the career that he's had if you're, this, quote unquote dictatorial type of guy that, they're trying to make him. You can't make deals that way. It doesn't work in business. Now, the Clintons wouldn't know anything about that because they don't actually build anything. They don't actually do anything. They just peddle influence and they sell it to the Saudis. And they screw up our oil deals and our natural gas supplies. They say, hey, they come up with the guise of environmentalism so they can keep getting money from the Saudis. The Saudis don't want us to do these things. His temperament is incredible, and you can't do what he's done over his life. Now, there also comes a point in time where you have to say, is enough is enough? And that's what he's saying for the American people. He's saying it for this country. Like, hey, enough's enough. We can have a good temperament when it makes sense, but we got to fix what's broken first. And if we keep dealing with the nonsense and the PC BS and all the nonsense that we're seeing day in and day out that just never ends, hey, eventually you have to put your foot down, John. You have to put your foot down and say enough is enough. And so, yeah, are there times where he's fed up? Yeah, he is, because he should be, because every American is. They're sick of this nonsense.
Well, look, when you're leading a movement to the extent that your father has ignited in America, you've got to be tough to be at the mantle of that. And I think that's what this is. He started a movement, and it goes beyond what some graphic that somebody does mistakenly. Otherwise, it's going to transcend that. I want to,
100%, John. And you want to talk about fit to lead? The director of the FBI said she's, gross negligence. This is a pattern of incompetence that we see with the Clintons. You want to talk about fit to lead this country? What about the hundreds of enemies that we have all across the world that have probably been reading her emails and have that leverage over her for the last years because she wanted to play a system, she wanted to game a system because she's above the law, because she can get away with it and nothing is ever going to happen because her people aren't going to indict her. How about we talk about that as it relates to competency and fitness to lead? My father's built a multi-billion-dollar company over a long period of time, has an incredible track record of success. They talk about, one or two deals that go rough. Hey, guess what? If she knew anything about being an entrepreneur, if she knew anything about being a businessman, you realize, hey, you don't hit a home run every time. Babe Ruth didn't hit a home run every time he got up to the plate, but he was still a pretty damn good baseball player. And that's what they do. They it's all, a game of smoke and mirrors with them. They come up with a couple sound bites, but they don't even talk about themselves and their incompetence and the things that they've done. And the same thing, whether it be Laureate University with the Clintons, it's just smoke after smoke after smoke after smoke for 40 years with them. And they keep pretending like there's nothing there. And guess what, John? Where there's that much smoke, there's certainly fire. The difference is because they're part of that political elite, they can keep getting away with it, whereas you and I would be sitting in jail for the rest of our lives.
Even the media gives them a pass. I mean, yesterday she goes to Atlantic City, and I know you had some failed business ventures there. I've been there many times myself, stayed in your hotels when they first opened. But
you know what happened with Atlantic City? You had a Democratic-run city and state that was shipping that money that Atlantic City was making everywhere else in the state. They weren't reinvesting in the city, so you can't blame my father for that. He did what he had to do as a businessman in those situations, but it's ridiculous. But you also can't look at that and say, well, hey, this is his career as a businessman. They don't talk about the thousands of deals that are home runs, the tens of thousands of people that he's employed, over the decades that he continues to employ to this day that we're now running, that business. They don't talk about that because guess what? That's a great story. How do you poke holes in that one? It's ridiculous.
Well, and then yesterday, which was, as a journalist, dumbfounding to me, is she goes to Atlantic City. She has this press conference. Nobody asks her a single question about these lies that she told, that James Comey called her out on. Nobody asked her a single question about these emails, so they just give her a pass. If the situation were to be reversed, you wouldn't be able to turn your phone on, the radio on, the TV on.
John, it'd be... the 24 news cycle is pretty ridiculous already. They're always sort of looking for something. But it would be nonstop for 3 weeks. You wouldn't be able to hear anything else if the shoes were on the other foot. Frankly, if it was any conservative, you wouldn't be able to get away with it. But certainly not my father. And, hopefully the American people are starting to get that.
All right, look, final question. We're going to be seeing you obviously in Cleveland. I'm a national delegate there myself as
Yep.
well. I'll be on the air there. Do you have a personal choice for VP for your father?
Listen, I think we have a couple great options, a couple good experience, like guys with a lot of good experience. So we're finalizing, all of that right now. I think there's a couple guys that I really like, but, what I like doesn't really matter. What my father likes is what matters. And ultimately the person that, he's going to have a good chemistry with and be able to work with. And, there's plenty of guys that are qualified, but it's probably going to be about finding that chemistry right now and finding someone that, that where they really understand each other and can work together.
All right. I predict you're going to make the announcement before the convention. Am I going to be right again?
I don't know, Jay. You've been right before, but I think it'll be, I think it'll be during. But you never know. That could always change.
All right, we'll see how it plays out. We're out of time.
We'll see how good you really are.
I am very good, but thanks for. I think it's going to be before the convention convenes on. I guess Monday, July 18th.
Yeah.
But look, we'll have you back when we're there. I want to thank you for your time today, Donald Trump Jr. Thanks for being with us, man. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, John. Have a good day.